Hello, and welcome to the Whatcom Dads Podcast, the podcast where local dads share their parenting experiences and some local kid-friendly recommendations. I'm Marc Bagley.
I'm Mike Kudo, filling in for one more week.
And I'm Nathan Dwyer. This week, we interview our co-host Mike about the challenges of having your first child in the middle of a pandemic. We talk about nap time for babies, and we recommend our favorite local parks. Mike, you came back for episode 23. It must not have been too painful.
Nope.
A man of few words.
It was great. I can't wait to say more.
There you go.
So, Mike, we alluded to it last week, but you had the pleasure of having your first child in the midst of this pandemic. I think she was born, a month into the pandemic?
She was.
So let's just talk about that for a minute. Did you ever imagine the first year of your daughter's life looking like it looks now?
Not at all. I think everyone anticipates or has this vision of what it's going to look like to be a new parent and to be a new father, and to have those moments of kind of sharing this special person with the people around you. And there 13 people have held my daughter in her first year of life. So we anticipated visiting friends and people visiting us and having this picture of kind of being new parents and kind of the shared community of raising a newborn, and having that support. And it looked a lot different. There was still support, I will say that. Thankfully, my wife's parents live in town, so they have been the most generous and gracious with their time, really quarantining themselves so that they could be part of our bubble through this whole first year of my daughter's life. It's helped it just be able to survive, really, to have their support, have them come by when we need them. And I think there's so much to be said about what grandparents are doing across our county, across our country, to support families in the midst of kind of the needs during this pandemic. And so we are one of those families that were really kind of fortunate in that.
Mike, I'm wondering what the hospital experience was like when your wife was giving birth. Can you share some stories about what was going on? Yeah.
So, Mark, our original plan was to have our daughter at the birth center here in Bellingham. The one that's on Cornwall has the sign with the numbers. And so we were working with a midwife and had been meeting with her all kind of leading up. And as COVID started to become a thing in January, we're in our birth class and they're talking about it. And we're like, yeah, maybe it's going to be a thing. And as we got closer to our due date in April, hospitals were saying basically only the birthing mother could come in. Not even like the partner could come in to be part of that. And that was pretty stressful, just thinking about like what we could and couldn't do. So my wife she's pretty amazing, and she, the night that she ended up going into labor, we hiked up to the top of like this mountain, and as we were coming back down, we just spent the evening together. She didn't tell me that she was in labor. I don't know if she even knew that she was in labor. I think she was thinking it was Braxton's Hicks, just because we were probably 10 days away from our due date, anticipating that we would probably be later than the due date. And so I got woken up. We went to bed at, regular time. And then I got woken up at 2:30 in the morning in the house by my wife kind of like waking me up. And I realized in that moment that my wife's in labor. And so then I turn on my, things are just kind of going along. And a lot of the emphasis was don't come into the hospital or don't come into the birth center early, because we want to like limit the amount of like close contact and things like that. And so both my wife and I being strong rule followers, did our best to do everything at home. But we got to a point in the labor that I was on the phone. I had talked to the midwife. She was on her way in. I was talking to our doula by phone, and she just asked, "Well, what's going on? And what do you see?" And I was like, "Oh, right." And then, sure enough, I saw my daughter's scalp, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So it was kind of in that moment I was like, "Oh, we're not going anywhere. Like we're not like getting in a car. We're not going anywhere." And so we moved over to the bathtub, and I got my wife into the bathtub, and it just seemed like probably in a matter of just 5-10 minutes, my daughter's head was kind of partway out. And so I just kind of guided her out and rubbed her back, and she was born, and it was just my wife and I at home. And then the midwife arrived maybe like 10 minutes later, cut the cord, which let's be honest, cutting the cord was a little anticlimactic after, what had just happened.
Yeah.
So our, we had a very different COVID birth story.
You're telling me. I'm wondering, did you get a discount from the midwife?
That's what I have been asking ever since. Honestly, I keep checking the bill. It doesn't. I don't think we did, but yeah.
Listeners, I got this text from Mike the next day that was like, "Well, our daughter came, and we had her in the bathtub at home." Yeah. And I was like, what? I was like, I need to know more, but I didn't bother him for a couple of days to hear the full story.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a pretty, it was an amazing experience. I will say that probably for a number of weeks following that, and maybe months, I would get moments of kind of just like, I don't know, PTSD probably would be the best way to kind of classify it, like of this like experience that I had. Like there was no one else around, right? And my wife's just kind of in the zone, and I'm kind of the one. And so thankfully, like my daughter was born healthy and good to go, and it all worked out. And it was an amazing, beautiful experience because we never left our house. Like we didn't leave our house for a while after she was born. Like we never so it was a really special thing to have that.
So is there any truth to the rumor that you're going to join the staff of the Bellingham Birth Center?
They have asked, but I'm kind of holding out for a management position.
Excellent.
One thing that you guys did, Mike, that I really appreciated is by the time you were ready to share her with all of your friends, you did sort of a window drive-by where we were right in the midst of COVID then, late April, and so you assigned us each a time to come by, and in the front room you had a area cleared out in the flower bed, and we could stand, and you guys stood inside at the window, and I think they slid it open a little bit so we could talk. So you got creative with that and were able to accomplish one of those sort of rites of passage, although it was just super different than anyone could have ever imagined.
It's kind of like Lion King, huh? When you're kind of holding the baby up and everyone kind of walks by. I love it.
Or like the old time, nursery where the babies went into like, we're in this like kind of glassed off cage in a sense. People came by. Yeah. It was really neat. And I tried to take photos of people that came for window visits, to visit. Cause that was, we were clearly quarantining and wanting to make sure our daughter, as well as, the rest of us stayed healthy in the midst of the pandemic. And so it was, a unique way to share her with people that wanted to see her.
That's great. Great story.
Thanks.
Before we move on, any unexpected positives or blessings that have come along with having her first year be spent mostly isolated?
I think I benefited being home so much the first year of her life. I took 3 months paternity leave, but that led into the summer, and then I continued to work from home through the next 3 to 4 months of work, because we were fully remote at that point. So just the fact that I got to spend every day with my wife and with my daughter, just doing life together, being a family together was a pretty special thing to do. And I don't think a lot of dads get to experience just that much constant time with your family, and especially in those first beginnings. So that was, I think, a real positive.
All right, we've got to close out our bracket, guys. We're doing the best parts of being a dad. We've got a tough finale here. Again, these two guys get to duke it out, and then I'll break any ties. But Marc, you're going to get to go first on this one. So cue up the music. Here it is for the finale, for the championship of best parts of being a dad. Will you go with hugs and kisses, or will you go with making memories and traditions with your kids?
This was a lot harder than I thought. It was a great game, Nathan. Kudos to you for thinking of it. I think I'm going to stick with creating memories. I just think that is so broad and encompasses so many things. And some of my greatest memories are the hugs and kisses, from my kids. And I think that, and I think I said it last week, I think that a great responsibility of the parents is to kind of create these lifelong experiences for the family, and to pass things on that can continue to be passed on. So I'm going to stick with the memories and the traditions as my winner.
Mike, which way are you going?
Man, it's a really hard poll, because I can just see the value in both, and there's just something so just absolutely pure and genuine about hugs and kisses. Like that can't be, and it's just this in the moment experience that isn't replaceable. Each one is unique. I value the memory. Yeah, I think I'm gonna lean on hugs and kisses, because I think one of the things that's been clear in this past year is how much these things that we can't experience have such even this like greater value of like the next time you're going to be able to hug that person it's fleeting. And so yeah, I think I'm going to go hugs and kisses. So Nathan, I'm going to make you be the tiebreaker.
Ooh,
super appropriate. It's perfect.
Super appropriate. I invent the game, then I have to choose the winner.
That's right.
I think that I'm going to go with memories and traditions, but only because that can encompass all of the other 15 things that were in the bracket. The way you interpret it can include everything. So we could go through line by line all of them. But I think all of these things are amazing parts of being a parent, and all of them are going to create some memories for you. So I think our overall winner is going to be creating memories and traditions via the other 15 entrants in the bracket.
Kind of feels like that was like a Superman one. Like Superman has all the superpowers, so therefore like he just wins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, exactly. Still okay. I mean, everybody likes Superman. He's a good guy. So
yeah, it was a little bit of a cheat at the end. I think you're right.
Your life can change in an instant. Car accidents impact all aspects of your life and lead to pain and suffering, medical bills, and time missed from work. Robinson & Kole, attorneys in Bellingham, can help. They have represented thousands of clients since 1979. They also handle other types of injury claims, including workers' compensation. Consultations are always free and are available in Spanish. Robinson & Kole. When you need us, we will be here.
This week for our parenting topic, we're going to talk about naps. And I only have one child who naps now, but Mike has one who naps, I believe, 2 times a day. And Marc, you probably nap, but your kids probably don't.
I nap 2 times a day now.
So naps can be quite a challenge, especially when the kids are young. I did some research and I reviewed some articles. I'll put some links in the show notes. But at the top, I want to really recommend the book that my family found the most helpful for sleeping and napping. And it's Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child by Dr. Marc Weissbluth. And it was a game changer. I've mentioned other books on this podcast, but this I think is a must-have for parents. Sleep is one of those things that is really vital to brain development for young children. And if there's ever a parenting place not to cut corners, I'm going to suggest that napping's not the one. I feel like getting into a routine and being consistent and sort of sticking to your guns on napping really leads to a more predictable disposition for your kids. So there's me getting off my soapbox. Guys, was napping or is napping a challenge for your kids either now or 20 years ago?
Napping at our house was a nightmare, especially with Allie. She hated taking naps. She refused to take naps. She was a pistol, a pain in the rear. It was a fight almost every single time. Eventually, she would just get so exhausted that she would nap. But I remember dropping her off at daycare in the morning and her having me negotiate with the teachers in the classroom if she did or didn't have to take a nap that day based on how she slept the night before or what time she went to bed the night before. And she was always such a different, happy kid when I would say, Allie doesn't need a nap today. And Annette remembers just fighting with her because she just didn't want to do it. And I think, honestly, she didn't want to miss what was going on. I think that she just wanted to be part of what was happening. And when she was sleeping, she was missing out. And as I've mentioned before, she was a spirited child. And I think that's one of the characteristics of that, where they just have this. I mean, she was experiencing FOMO before FOMO was a thing.
Marc, there's a book in our bedroom right now called Raising the Spirited Child. And
Annette read it.
Okay. Yeah. Our Benjamin definitely fits that bill. So
yeah. And you talked about game-changing books. That was a game changer for Annette because she understood our daughter so much better after reading that book.
Yeah. Temperament dictates a lot about napping. And I think you have to be flexible. If you have more than one kid, what works for one is not going to necessarily work for the other.
Mm-hmm.
So newest dad, bring us up to speed on naps.
Struggle. It was a struggle to start with. And I guess I would classify where she naps. So she would nap just fine if she was like attached to us. And that's what we just decided to do. Because rather than like putting her, down in a crib and trying to like do like, well, let her, cry for 15 minutes and then take her and then try to do the pattern. We felt like, well, where are we going? We can just wear while we're working at home, working or doing things around, and found that actually worked a lot better for us to just get her the sleep that she needed, that we knew that she needed. And then, now she's down to 2 naps a day, and it's almost like clockwork at this point that she's kind of hitting her morning nap at around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then her second nap around 1:30, napping from anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. It's a broad range, but yeah, pretty flexible.
Yeah, the resources I reviewed this week sort of made a distinction between the first 4 months. They might nap 3 or 4 times a day. They're probably going to nap in your arms or close by you. And at that point, you really have to soothe them to get them to go to sleep. And then 4 months and after, sort of recommended they're in a crib. You can let them cry it out at that point, and then they're probably down to what might be 2 naps. So yeah, a little bit different when they're a newborn versus sort of getting on to up to 4 months and plus. So any particular tips or things that you found helpful? I'll share with you sort of a list that my wife and I compiled. Number 1, if you can get your kids some fresh air, That will often help them fall asleep, even if it's just a quick walk around the block in the stroller. That seemed to work well for us. Another thing that was helpful was we got those blinds that were the blackout shades, and so it keeps the room really dark. I think that was money well spent for us. I think the other thing was one of our children enjoyed napping in a swing. The other two didn't. But if you can find some device like that, especially when they're young, that can certainly help. And then with our first daughter, I played music sometimes, the Rockabye baby lullabies, which is, I think I've mentioned before on the show, where they take more modern pop songs, but put them to a classical sort of slower beat. That was pretty fun to play for the kids.
Well, this is an old standard, which I think parents have been doing for 100 years, since the invention of the automobile, is to get the kids to fall asleep while driving them around in the car, something about that, the sound of the road or whatever. But what Annette did, she took it one step further, and this is just her because she's a very patient person, is that she learned to put a book in the car. So when she got home, if the kids were asleep, she'd pull into the garage, close the garage door, and sit in the car and read a book while the kids slept, which I thought was brilliant.
I would just add one more item. That's so I guess it's really that car noise, but we have a white noise machine that basically you kind of pick some different options, but that's just a must, because we've got the app on our phone, and if things are a little louder out, like in the neighborhood, we can just like crank up the white noise machine in the bedroom, and that's all she hears, and it just kind of is a nice little buffer.
Yeah, doesn't that mimic like what they hear in the womb, I think? And so they're pretty familiar with that. We've had a couple of those, and we find that they're very useful, like when you travel, if it's a new environment or a hotel, bring that along.
Yeah, we didn't have those.
You could just stand over them and go.
That's true.
I had I'd have my CB radio and just, all that stuff.
Well, you would have had to pack a record player back then, right?
We did, yeah. I had a really long extension cord.
Phonograph, maybe?
Yeah, we cranked it.
Another thing to watch for is begin to pick up on those signs when your kids are getting overtired, and that'll really help you. Yeah, rubbing the eyes. I have 2 thumb suckers in my family, and so just knowing when they're getting tired, if you can get them down quickly, that's going to help. And then the other thing is, there's going to be that tricky point when they go from 3 naps to 2 or 2 naps to 1, and just sort of having a plan in place where you can sort of move those times. Just getting consistency in there is going to really help.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, and it's a challenge, and it's something you have to be very patient with, because as every parent knows, as soon as the child is born, you're no longer in charge. And napping is just another example of how they are going to dictate what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And you just got to be adaptable.
All right. Well, hopefully that was some helpful information about nap times. Again, I've got links to these articles and that book that I recommended, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child, in the show notes. The Interfaith Coalition of Whatcom County connects local families experiencing homelessness with the skills and tools they need to become self-sufficient in a home of their own. Join Interfaith Coalition on Saturday, April 10th at 7 p.m. for their virtual storytelling fundraiser, Sanctuary, Calm and Chaos. This free event, which you can live stream from your home, will bring the community together to raise money for families experiencing homelessness here in Whatcom County. Storytellers include a Moth Story Slam winner, a Nooksack tribal storyteller, and a former Family Promise of Whatcom County guest. Learn more about Interfaith Coalition and register for this virtual fundraiser at interfaith-coalition.org. That's interfaith-coalition.org. All right, this week on Whatcom Dads Recommend, we're going to talk about parks. We have tons of wonderful parks here in Whatcom County. If you just check out the county parks website or the Bellingham City Parks website or the other municipalities, you can find all the information about some great places to go. And with the county now in phase 3, playgrounds are open again. There are some rules still in effect with, I think when we were there this past week, 6 kids on a playground was sort of the recommendation here in the city of Bellingham with masks still on. So springs are coming, springs are here, although you wouldn't know it from today's torrential downpour.
Well, Nathan, I can never pick just one, so I'm going to pick 2. At the beginning of our children's lives, we lived in Bellingham, and we lived very close to Whatcom Falls Park, and that was a go-to for us because we could actually walk there, and there were the fish ponds and the trails and the waterfalls and the bridges, and it was just a great place for little kids to hang out. And then when we moved to the county, our favorite park became Hovander, which is another phenomenal resource for this entire county. Dogs, bikes, huge grassy areas. It's a phenomenal place to spend a day, especially in the summer when the farm animals are out.
I'm going to second your Whatcom Falls Park recommendation and add that now they have a pump track, both a kids version and an adult version. And so my little ones are riding their bikes around that these days. And you're right. There's so many things you could do. There are 2 playgrounds, sort of an upper one for bigger kids, and then a smaller, I guess, kind of a tot lot sort of thing down a little bit lower towards the falls. So yeah, I'll second Whatcom Falls Park, and then I'll recommend Squalicum Creek Park, which is sort of a newer park here in Bellingham. It's the only park I know of around here that has a zip line and a really big, nice play structure. They've got ball fields and picnic areas. We've even had one of the kids' birthday parties there. So I'll recommend Squalicum Creek Park as well.
Well, since everybody's volunteering 2 parks, I think I'm going to lean towards, I live kind of in the Ridgemont area, and the Ridgemont Park, it's a tiny little park. I mean, it's like nothing of a park, but my daughter really only likes swings anyway. I mean, it's like her favorite. I put her on a swing and it's like all giggles and screams. And so anything that has a good swing, and that's a great park because it's never crowded. So it's always a really accessible park, good parking to just be able to access it. But then I want to highlight the Cordata Park. So this is, I think, maybe our newest park in Bellingham and Whatcom County, or in the Cordata area. Great park, lots of variety as far as play structure, trails, and really, and there's even like a parkour section. So just some real variety for a lot of ages, and yeah, also has some great swings. So my daughter loves that.
Thanks to Mike Kudo for filling in the last couple weeks. And as always, thanks to our sponsor, Robinson & Kole Attorneys.
You can reach the show through our Facebook page or our email address, which is whatcomdadspodcast@gmail.com. We welcome feedback and suggestions.
We're not sure what we're talking about next week, so I'm just going to experiment with this vocal filter. See you next week. What did the fisherman say to the magician?
I don't know.
Pick a card, any card.
What's the best thing about elevator jokes?
What?
They work on so many levels.
So the eye doctor tells his patient, your results aren't so good. And the patient says, can I see them? The eye doctor says, probably not.